So is being contemporary the same as being modern? Because what we call modern, what we call traditional today may be contemporary at a previous point in history. So it would be modern at that time, right? So one of the meanings of the word modern is being contemporary. But if we look into its depth, right, then we need to specify what is it that is our contemporary. What are the things that we call our contemporary? Contemporary means being in the same time. Temporal, contemporal, यानी हमारे ही समय में, right? So what are the things that are our contemporary? What are the things that we call contemporary? So modernity is something that is relative to its historical context. So what is traditional today may be modern in 17th century.
I think we can say that sending girls to school is now contemporary, while first it was not.
It was modern. Uh, right now it is traditional almost. Everybody, almost everyone sends their daughters to school. Right? But 100 or 200 years ago, that was not the case. There it was even resisted and people opposed sending daughters to school, right? So so this is a new development in Indian society, that girls being sent to school, right, is a new development of that time, but now it has become uh, a tradition. It is now a requirement, right? Okay, what else do you remember? No one else remembers anything from our previous class except Udit, Twisha, Jia, Deepika, Disha, Sakshi, Geetika. What do you remember about our discussion? So what did we discuss? You are right, Jia. What are the things that we discuss about modernity and tradition? We discuss various perspectives, right, of modernity. So what do you remember about those perspectives? You are right, Jia. That they differ from a person to person, right? What do you mean by being perspective of being modern?
Sir, I guess being updated to the common sense of the era which we are in.
Okay, being knowledgeable of the common sense of the era. So what does that mean? Can you give me an example, Udit?
We discussed it right now, right? That in our era,
Correct.
it's common sense that we have to
Right.
send every child to
Right.
school,
Right.
and that is all.
Right. But if you just think further about this, then you will realize that common sense is also historical. Hmm? यानी आज जो हम कॉमन सेंस समझते थे वो पहले के जमाने में कॉमन सेंस नहीं था. राइट? यस, नो, उदित?
Yes, sir.
So which means what you think as being common sense is historical. It is related to the period in which we are living. Right? Okay. And once we start discussing the question of tradition and modernity from a historical perspective, so Gia says it varies from person to person, right? But do you think, Gia, it varies from person to person?
Yes, absolutely, sir.
आज आप कहोगे कि मैं अपनी बेटी को स्कूल में नहीं डालूंगी, कह सकते हो ऐसा? आप मान सकते हो?
Sir, in which aspect?
आई एम टॉकिंग ऑफ, आप कह रहे हो मॉडर्न क्या है और ट्रेडिशनल क्या है, ये हर एक इंसान के ऊपर निर्भर करता है, राइट? दैट इज व्हाट यू आर सेइंग, दैट इट डिपेंड्स ऑन अ पर्सन टू पर्सन. दैट इज व्हाट यू एंड विशा आर सेइंग कि वो सब्जेक्टिव है. पर मैं पूछ रहा हूं एक्चुअली क्या वो सब्जेक्टिव है? क्या आप ऐसे मान सकते हो कि मैं अपनी बेटी को नहीं पढ़ाऊंगी? ऐसा आप मान सकते हो? कैन यू से दैट?
कपड़ों में और मैं कुछ नहीं भी करूंगी.
I didn't understand. There was some noise in the background.
I like to write a message.
You can type it. So is it really subjective? Modern क्या है? ये subjective है क्या? ऐसे मैं पूछ रहा हूँ. नहीं, I am not talking of time and situation, G. I am talking of idea. I am talking of, do you agree that because you are saying it is subjective, तो क्या ये तेरे पे निर्भर करता है या सिचुएशन और टाइम पे निर्भर करता है अपने बेटी को पढ़ाना या ना पढ़ाना? I hope I'm telling you what I'm communicating in something. तेरे पे निर्भर कर रहा है या परिस्थिति और समय पर डिपेंड करता है? No, you can type because you have raised a very important issue. That's why I'm having this conversation. It's a very interesting question. Doesn't matter if your network is a problem. No issues. And this is for all of you. These questions are not on. Yeah, my question is, does sending your daughter to school, right, depend on time and condition or your perception? What I am trying to find out is the question of modernity subjective? सच में सब्जेक्टिव है क्या, ऐसे मैं पूछ रहा हूं, या सबके ऊपर वो असर करती है? यानी अगर हम ऐसे मान ले कि स्कूल में बेटियों को पढ़ाना ये मॉडर्निटी का विचार है, तो क्या it will differ from person to person, or will it be something else? That is what I'm trying to figure out. Because Jia and Twisha believes modern क्या है और क्या नहीं varies from person to person. मैं कहना चाहता हूं कि वो हिस्टोरिकल है, यानी वो परिस्थिति और समय के साथ जुड़ा हुआ है, और हमारी जो सोच है वो भी परिस्थिति और समय के साथ बदलती रहती है. Okay. But do you think traditional and orthodox people don't send their daughters to school today? आज की बात करें, contemporary situation की बात करें. Have you seen any family, Jia, which do not send their daughters to school?
Sir, I think it depends. Like if in a society majority of people are doing something, then the minority people will have to follow them because they will be outcasted from the society. Is what I think.
Right. So modernity कहीं पे ऐसा भी है कि सब लोग कर रहे हैं तो हमको भी करना चाहिए. हमारे पर प्रेशर रहता है, यानी even if we don't agree, there will be a pressure, right? So modernity can create its own pressure, right? And one more thing that we discussed, if you remember, there is ये कौन सी सोच है? मॉडर्निटी सोच में भी होती है या नहीं होती? जैसे क्या सोच है जो मॉडर्न मानी जाएगी और क्या सोच है जो मॉडर्न नहीं मानी जाएगी? Yeah, जी, I get it. Even after 10th and 12th, पर वहां तक तो पढ़ाते हैं ना, डालते ही नहीं स्कूल में, ऐसा तो नहीं है ना? So question that I'm asking you now is, what is that thinking that brings about social change? Because modernity has something to do with social change, right? As somebody was pointing out last time, I forgot who was talking about that. That social and cultural change is brought about by thinking. So modernity has something to do with changed way of thinking. And would you agree that thinking changes with time and place? Do you think so? Yes. Prithvi, can you give me an example? How
Sir,
does thinking change with time?
sir, in earlier times, people were not that educated, and then later, some people initiated the, you know, going to school, and all those people just started spreading awareness, and other people followed through. So earlier, it was considered that it is not that important to, gain knowledge, but with time, that changed. So
Right. So consider this change of thinking. Earlier, people used to think education is not that important. Now they think education is very important, even for their daughters, right? That change of thinking is also related to the change of values. It was considered a value to be educated. So do you think it's a new value? It's not a traditional value that girls have to be educated. Do you think this is a new value?
sir, I didn't quite get it. Could you please?
What I'm saying is, सोच बदलती है तो उसके साथ मूल्य भी बदलते हैं. Values change, right? First, it was considered a value not to send daughters to school or children to school, right? And then a new form of thinking came about. नई सोच आई, नई अवेयरनेस आई, as you said, right? जिसकी वजह से अब वैल्यूज भी चेंज होने लगे। अब ये वैल्यूएबल माना गया कि हम अपने बच्चे को पढ़ा रहे हैं, राइट? सो दिस इज अ न्यू वैल्यू, right? And that is an old value. So modernity has something to do with the change in values. Would you agree to that? That's what I'm
Yes,
asking.
sir. I agree.
So thinking, value are also historical. Values are also historical, right?
Yes.
So again, one more question crops up about modernity. Is modernization, adhunikikaran, is that westernization? Do you get my question? Is modernization equivalent to westernization?
I think yes, sir. It's quite similar.
Okay. In what way? Can you elaborate?
Uh, Give me a minute to, frame my words because
You
I'm
can
not,
think about it. Yeah. You can take your time, think through it and
yeah.
respond. Yeah, Geetika, not sending children to school would show that that the person in the authority in the house. Okay.
Sir, about Western style, I think modernity in India came from Western because this whole concept of modernity, I think it was brought by the Britishers to here because first we are not that much thinking about sending a girl to school and everything,
Hmm,
all the
hmm,
concept. But after when they came here, whole
hmm.
policy thing came in and many things
Right.
was just pushed in India. That is why this concept of thinking came that we have to follow them to be modern. Is I think.
राइट। और क्या लगता है आपको आज भी वही चल रहा है कि वेस्टर्न अपने आप को जितना करो तो ही हम मॉडर्न होंगे? ऐसी सोच आज भी है या नहीं है?
हाँ जी सर है।
राइट। और कोई एग्जांपल्स आपको आता है किसी को भी? कैन एनीवन थिंक ऑफ एनी अदर एग्जांपल अपार्ट फ्रॉम गर्ल्स एजुकेशन? इट्स अ वेरी गुड एग्जांपल, बट अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट, व्हाट अबाउट मॉडर्नाइजेशन ऑफ clothes or religious beliefs or marriage? In terms of marriage, clothes, food, uh, do you think there is modernization happening? Can
Yes
religion
sir.
be modernized? क्योंकि रिलीजन को तो हम ट्रेडिशन समझते हैं ना, और उसका आधुनिकीकरण होता है या नहीं होता?
In my opinion, I don't think so that religion is modernized because modernization is something to deal with technology improvement and stuff, in my opinion. And
Okay.
when it comes to westernization, I think it's more about ideas
Mm-hmm.
and religion and that stuff. So, yeah.
Okay. But if you look at our history, and the whole reason why we are having this discussion is that in 19th century onwards, right, in India, people thought that religion also needs to be modernized. It has to be reformed, right? Or very much often on Western lines, right? Very often, for example, uh, untouchability, right, which was in many ways sanctioned by religion, or a lot of rituals, right, uh, food habits which religion controlled, right, people started moving out from them, and still they believed in religion, they believed in God, right, but they thought that these religious beliefs are outdated, right, but their core faith in God or idea of God, all those things remained, right? People also started thinking about idea of one God, right? So there was a change in religious thinking and religious values, just like we saw an example of girls education, right? How new thinking gives rise to new values. So new kind of thinking about religion also began in India in 19th century. And one of the most important questions that the intellectuals of 19th century India, right, who were educated in English and Western education system, was that they thought that beliefs like sati, you know what is sati? That
Yes, sir.
after the death of husband, the wife immolates herself, burns herself in the funeral pyre. That was inhuman and had to be stopped. Right? So that was one way that people thought that religious beliefs or social beliefs that are sanctioned or legitimized by religion, right, have to be changed. And remember, modernization is all about social change that we are discussing, and it is connected to the change in thinking and values, right? So one of the areas that people thought had to be rechanged was this question of sati and widowhood, especially among the upper caste Hindus, right? They thought that the 19th century intellectuals like Rajaram Mohan Roy, right, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, and many other reformers later on, even Narmad to start out with, they started questioning these religious beliefs, right? They thought that these are outdated beliefs and they don't have anything to do with God or belief in God. So they tried to reform religion, right? And they started associations and societies, and they used to have a discussion in their periodicals. So an organization like Brahmo Samaj, started by Rajaram Mohan Roy, later on Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, and then Keshav Chandra Sen. These are the things that you have studied in school, right? You have heard of these things in your school?
Yes, sir.
Rajaram Mohan Roy. But now we are looking at it from a very different angle. We are studying the same thing, not as uh, information to be memorized for examination purpose, but as a part of inquiry to understand ourselves. हम अपने आप को समझना चाहते हैं, क्योंकि हम हमारी ट्रेडिशन और मॉडर्निटी को समझना चाहते हैं, राइट? हमारे संदर्भ में हमारी लाइफ से कनेक्टेड what are the questions of tradition and modernity, and that is how we are started looking at the history of modernity in India, right? And the these organizations like Brahmo Samaj, and in Maharashtra there was something called Prarthana Samaj, right? And later on Swami Vivekanand promulgated Ramakrishna Mission, right? And Dayanand Saraswati also tried to reform Hinduism, right, by saying that all these things are not there in the Vedic text. जैसे कि विधवा की शादी नहीं होनी चाहिए, सती हो जाना चाहिए औरतों को, ऐसे तो वेदों में तो लिखा नहीं है. So Dayanand Saraswati said that we should go back to the Vedas in order to modernize Hinduism, right? And by modernize, because you are looking also at the Western societies where women were educated, literate, and they had possibility of marriage after their husband's death as well. So looking at condition of women in the West, Indian English educated intellectuals started reforming religion and society. So there was this reformist tendency in the 19th century, right? For example, the question of caste, right? So caste hierarchy, caste barriers should not be there, right? So these were the efforts made to reform or modernize religion. So what Prithvi is saying, that religion is not something that can be modernized. But if you look at the history, then there are efforts made to reform Hinduism and Hindu society. right? And very often by trying to discover the true traditional spirit, right? So modernization does not mean that you break off with tradition, but you reinterpret tradition, recast tradition in uh, for contemporary period, right? So people like Dayanand Saraswati or Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar or Rajaram Mohan Roy tried to reinterpret tradition. They did not reject tradition, right? In order to reform or modernize, you reinterpret tradition. And one example that we brought up last time was fasting, right? And fasting as a traditional practice is part of religious beliefs. But today people say, I fast because I want to be healthy. Have you heard of this conversation? Have you heard people saying that? That I am fasting not because of religious reasons, but I want to be healthy, right? So this reinterpretation of tradition is associated with modernity, right? Modernity does not mean a break with tradition, but reinterpretation of tradition, right? And this process started in the 19th century. Clear? Yeah, I am not trying to invalidate you, Prithvi. I am just trying to make you think beyond and further from where you have thought. So what you have said is not incorrect. So it's not about being correct or incorrect or mistake. I'm just making you think further, right? It's like you have taken 3 steps. I am asking you to take 4, 5, 6, 7 steps. That's what. And that's how our conversations proceed. Okay. Another thing developed in the 19th century, right? And that was a kind of examination or inquiry into why did Indians lose to the British? Why were Indians conquered by the British, right? Especially after 1857, because in 1857 there was a kind of uprising against the British, something called First Indian War of Independence, right? According to some people. And 1857 is also the year when the first universities were started in India. In Bombay Presidency, in Delhi, in Kolkata Presidency, and in Chennai. So 4 places, 4 universities were started for first time in India, right? Earlier, there used to be universities like Nalanda and Vatapi, and there were many universities in ancient India. But most of them were of religious orientations, especially Buddhist. Many of them were Buddhist and Jain universities, which also taught Hindu spiritual systems, knowledge systems. So the modern Western model of university became prominent in after 1857. And these graduates, these intellectuals who were brought up in English education system, right, started asking themselves, why did Indians lose to the British? Right? And there were 2 kinds of answers that were given. In those, we are talking about 19th century. One answer that was given was by reformers who said that Indians lost to the British people because they are culturally backward. There is some problem with Indian society and culture, especially religion, right? And so the religion has to be modernized. The religion has to be westernized further so that we can counter the British colonialism. So we were colonized, we became slaves because of problems in Hindu society, like casteism, like inferior status of women, like superstitions, right? All these things, according to these reformers, was the reason why India was colonized, right? And there were other thinkers like Vishnu Shastri Chiplunkar or Bal Gangadhar Tilak, who thought that the problem, or even the Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, they believed that India became colonized, we lost to the West because there is no unity in Indian society. So the task of modernity for people like Tilak was to unite India, right? Because they didn't think that we are because we are backward or there are problems in our religion that we are defeated. The main problem is lack of unity, right? And they also advise that we should take whatever is the best from the West, right? Best from the British. And at the same time, unite against the British colonial rule, right? So these people, the nationalists, right, and the reformers, were the two sets of intellectuals in the 19th century. And the nationalism that we are talking about is anti-colonial nationalism. So the nationalist thinking that came up in 19th century India was not to be found in, say, for example, 13th century literature or 8th century literature. You won't find that kind of thinking that we are Indians and we are one political entity or we are one civilizational entity, and uh, uh, we have this identity called Indian. So you won't find anybody saying, like Kabir saying, I am an Indian, or Narsimha Mehta saying, I am an Indian, because the question of Indianness, something that we started out our discussion right in the beginning, as a question of identity, became prominent only in the 19th century with the rise of new kind of political setup that the British introduced in India. And this political setup is the new nation state. And if you're aware of the history of what existed before the nation state, were various kingdoms of all kinds. Sikh कहीं पे मराठा है, कहीं पे टिप्पू सुल्तान है, कहीं पे मीर जाफर है, कहीं पे सिराजुद्दौला और मीर जाफर है, कहीं पे कोई है, right? कहीं पे निजाम है. So there were several kingdoms, right, which were always at war with each other, and they could not really unite. For example, in 1857, people realized that this uprising happened only in some parts of North India. Right? It did not happen across India. It did not affect the South. Right? It did not affect Gujarat so much. Right? It was happening more in Meerut and central India. And Sikhs did not join the 1857 uprising, right? Because they were loyal to the British. Because it's the Sikh value that you should be loyal to your employers. And in this case, the employers were the British East India Company. The South Indian political powers also did not join 1857. Right? So 1857 uprising was not a pan-Indian phenomena. Right? It did not involve all Indians. Right? So what happened in 1857 was that the king Bahadur Shah Zafar, who himself was a great poet, right, and the poet that we are going to study today, right, were there in Delhi, and the Mughal power had considerably weakened after Aurangzeb died in 1707, in the beginning of 18th century. The Mughal Empire had almost spiraled downwards, and it had lost control over most of the Indian subcontinent. The most powerful players were the Marathas, right? and the Sikhs and people like Hyder Ali in the south, right? These were the powerful people, and Sirajuddaulah in the eastern part of the country. Now, all these people would never come on table together. They were busy fighting each other. And so there is a new kind of state that the British colonialism through East India Company imposed on India, right? So you have a new nation state, which is probably biggest nation state. And the philosophy and the theory and ideology of the state that you find in the 19th century came from Western philosophers of nation state, right? Like Hobbes or Rousseau and whatnot. So a new modern idea of state was introduced in India in the 19th century that did not exist earlier. So in our discussion of tradition and modernity, we discuss education, we discuss religion, but then even politics was modernized. I hope you get what I'm saying. आधुनिकीकरण राजकारण का भी हुआ, राजनीति का भी आधुनिकीकरण हुआ. क्यों? क्योंकि जो नया राज्य था was based on a Western model of state, nation state. और उसकी जो सोच थी उसके पीछे वो भी मॉडर्न थी. Am I making sense? Please ask me if you don't understand what I'm saying. That just like we are talking of girls' education and religion being modernized, we also talked about literature getting modernized. The politics were also being modernized in 19th century. So if you don't understand what I'm saying, just raise your hand. I will explain once again. किसी को कोई डाउट्स है? क्या मतलब है कि राजनीति और राजकारण का भी आधुनिकीकरण हुआ? तो क्या मतलब निकलता है? What do you mean by that? Can anyone tell me?
सर कुछ लॉज और सब चेंज हुआ होगा तो वो एक टाइप से मॉडर्नाइजेशन ही है.
राइट. वो कौन से लॉज होंगे? फॉर एग्जांपल, यू आर एब्सोल्युटली राइट.
फॉर एग्जांपल आपने कहा ना राजा राम मोहन रॉय का एग्जांपल देके सती प्रथा वाज बैंड.
Very good. Correct. And the laws were made for education, right?
Yes.
But what was really modern was thinking that went into behind those laws. कानून तो पहले भी बना करते थे, राइट? राजा जो थे, जैसे मराठा थे तो उनके कानून थे, मुगल थे तो उनके कानून थे, हैदर अली के कानून होंगे, और उसका बेटा टिपू सुल्तान उसके कानून होंगे. कानून तो पहले से भी बनते थे, पर जो कानून बनाने के पीछे सोच जो थी ना, वो कुछ नहीं थी. वो पश्चिम से आई हुई सोच थी. तो वो कौन सी सोच थी पृथ्वी जो ऐसा कानून बनाती है कि सती शुड बी बैंड, द प्रैक्टिस ऑफ सती शुड बी बैंड? क्या सोच है वो?
सर आई थिंक ये जो सोच आई थी, ये राजा राम मोहन रॉय की, शायद जो उनके कोई रिलेटिव ही थे शायद, उनके साथ, मतलब वो उनके हस्बैंड मर गए तो उस वजह से उन्होंने देखा कि कितनी प्रॉब्लम्स उनको फेस करनी पड़ती है सोसाइटी में, कहीं भी जाओ, मतलब शी हैज टू वेयर वाइट साड़ी.
पहले क्यों नहीं लगा था लोगों को? सती तो पहले भी जाते थे ना लोग.
ही एक्सपीरियंस इट हिमसेल्फ ना सर, उसको
हाँ, पर लोग एक्सपीरियंस तो करते ही होंगे पहले भी. किसी के घर में सती होती ही होंगी.
शायद
तो उसने ये प्रॉब्लम है.
शायद उसने देखा होगा कि वेस्टर्न में जो वेस्टर्न पीपल है उनमें ये प्रॉब्लम नहीं होती, तो वहां से उसने सोचा कि ये प्रॉब्लम हटानी चाहिए.
एग्जैक्टली. सो ये सोच कहाँ से आती है? वेस्ट से आती है, राइट? और पश्चिम में ये माना जाता है कि हर इंसान कानून के सामने इक्वल है, फिर वो औरत हो या अस्पृश्य हो या कोई भी हो. द आइडिया ऑफ इक्वालिटी एंड ह्यूमैनिज्म should be the guiding principles behind making of laws, right? So anything that is seen as inhuman should be banned. So the modern state, modern British or East India Company ने जो state बनाया, right, was based on humanism. You get this? And equality, the ideas of equality and humanism were behind the modern idea of state. Would you say that, Udit?
Yes, sir.
राइट? तो ये सोच जो है ना वो नहीं है, दैट इज अ मॉडर्न, और ये मूल्य जो है वो नए हैं, राइट? सो द मॉडर्न आइडिया ऑफ स्टेट ऑल्सो सेड दैट किंग इज नॉट अ डिवाइन पावर ऑन अर्थ, राइट? इट बिलीव्ड दैट द किंग or the person who is in charge of the kingdom or the nation is not a divine entity. पहले क्या मानते थे? राजा जो है ना वो भगवान ने नियुक्त किया है, उसे भगवान ने भेजा है हमारे पर राज करने के लिए. ऐसे ट्रेडिशनल मानते थे लोग, आज भी मानते हैं, नहीं ऐसा नहीं, पर वेस्टर्न सोसाइटी में ये माना जाता है कि ये एक आउटडेटेड ख्याल है. Who should run the nation is decided by the people, right? It should be an expression of people's will. Nation is a social contract, right? And that is the theory that was given by people like Rousseau, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a French philosopher, and people like Hobbes and John Locke and many other British thinkers say that the person who will be ruling over a nation should be an expression of that people's will, right? So it is not because somebody comes from a dynasty that you are a king. It's not because Acha.
Actually, 30 needs it, so can I just change the name?
Yeah, you can just find out your name. So the idea of state that came with the British colonialism was this modern idea of state, right? Which was not based on the traditional religious authorities like the Bible, but new kind of rationality of the middle class in the West, right? And that is the reason why we started discussing the question of modernism and modernity in Indian literature by looking at Renaissance, by looking at Reformation. We looked at how the feudal society collapsed in the West and a new class of people emerged who redefined what is politics, right? And this model of politics was introduced to India through colonial power. But there is a contradiction here. There is a big problem in this. And the big problem is that the British rule in India is not an expression of Indian people's will. ये इंडियन लोगों ने तय नहीं किया है कि अंग्रेज राज करेंगे हमारे पर, वो तो आके हमारे पर बैठ गए सर के ऊपर. I hope you are getting what I am saying. So this new modern politics was imposed against the spirit of that theory itself on India. So that is the basic contradiction in the new model of state that emerged in the 19th century. Changed it?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that clear for everyone? Any questions?
Yes, sir. Sir, you said that these new laws and everything was based on humanity.
Huh.
But the Westerns, the Britishers who came, they were also inhuman towards us, na?
Inhuman. Right. उन्होंने
So
तो
how
मिलिट्री
was that?
पावर से जीता है हमको, राइट?
सर तो ये
बात
कॉन्सेप्ट
ह्यूमैनिज्म
थोड़ा
की करते हैं, मगर हमारे पे इनह्यूमन तरीके से तो उन्होंने हड़प लिया है देश को, है ना? तो ये
तो सर ये
कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन है, ये विरोधाभास है, ये नए मॉडर्न स्टेट का जो 19वीं सदी से हमारे यहाँ आया। ये उसकी थियोरी क्या कहती है? इंसानियत होनी चाहिए, इक्वालिटी होनी चाहिए, and the state should be an expression of people's will. That is the theory of modern state that existed in England. They have taken it and imposed it here. It is neither human, neither is it equal, nor is it expression of Indian people's will. That is the problem of the modern Indian state that came about in the 19th century colonial state, right? So colonial state is having this fundamental contradiction. Do you get what I'm saying? So that
no,
is how
sir.
politics was modernized in 19th century India.
Sir, as you said in Renaissance,
Hmm.
the Pope was doing the same thing to people. He was like, he said this
Exactly.
is right, so the people had to believe it. So they changed some people who came from the invaded empire. They came and they changed everything, right?
Right.
And the same thing, the Britishers came here and did the same thing as the Royal Catholic Church. So how were they even thinking of humanism when they were doing this?
तो उस पे ऐसा है कि राजा राम मोहन राय को खुद को लगा कि ये बंद हो जाना चाहिए। अब राजा राम मोहन राय अंग्रेज था नहीं, राइट? उसे ऐसा लगता है कि ये सती और ये जो विधवाओं की अवस्था है ये बहुत ही भयंकर है, राइट? और वो बदलनी चाहिए, क्योंकि वेस्ट में तो ऐसा कुछ होता नहीं और फिर भी उनकी सोसाइटी आज हमारे पर हावी हो सकती है। यानी ये मान्यताएं जो हमारी है वो गलत है, राइट? So he writes, he demanded, and William Bentinck, who was the viceroy, right, of East India Company, made this law, passed this law, and it did not go down very well. And that is one of the reasons why you had this 1857 uprising. 1857 में लोगों ने यही चीजों का विरोध करना शुरू कर दिया। जैसे ऐसी एक भी कहानी चली कि ये जो बंदूकें हैं उसका जो कारतूस है, कार्ट्रिज, वो गाय का और सुअर का मांस होता है उसमें, और वो दांत से खोलनी पड़ती है और बाद में बंदूक में आप गोली डालते हो। तो जो हिंदू थे और जो मुसलमान थे सैनिक, उन्होंने इसका विरोध करना शुरू कर दिया, राइट? दैट वाज वन ऑफ द थिंग्स दैट triggered 1857. I don't know if you have heard of this story. They refused to bite that cartridge because the belief was that this cartridge has leather from cow and pigs.
Yes, sir. I guess Mangal Pandey was the one who did it.
Pandey was one of the first person who refused, and there was people spontaneous. Other soldiers started supporting his cause, right? And that is how it started. Right. So British after 1857 did not want to interfere in religious matters and social matters. 1857 के बाद क्या होता है? एक बार हाथ तो जले हैं, आपने विधवाओं का पुनर्विवाह करने का कानून बना दिया, आपने सती प्रथा को बंद करने का कानून बना दिया, पर उससे उनके हाथ जल गए, तो उन्होंने बंद कर दिया ये सब, because they thought that we don't want this kind of problem again after 1857. And the power was taken away from East India Company, and British Empire took over India in 1858 or 1857. So the Queen Victoria is the ruler of India after 1857. डायरेक्टली क्वीन के अंडर में आ गया. तो इंडिया का पूरा जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन था वो ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी से लेके ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट के नीचे आ गया. सरकार से लेके, प्राइवेट एंटिटी से लेके गवर्नमेंट एंटिटी के अंदर में आ गया. Right, so that is what happened after 1857, and they stopped interfering. And one of the conflicts after that was age of consent of marriage, because according to Hindu Dharma Shastras, the girl has to get married before her puberty. According to Manusmriti and other Smritis, लड़की की शादी उसकी प्यूबर्टी से पहले हो जानी चाहिए. फर्स्ट मेंस्ट्रुएशन होने से पहले शादी होनी चाहिए, और तुरंत ही उसके बाद गर्भ संस्कार रहना चाहिए. उस लड़की को बच्चा होना चाहिए. दैट इज व्हाट हिंदू शास्त्र वुड रेकमेंड. और उससे होता ये था कि गर्ल्स गॉट मैरिड वेरी अर्ली, right, at the age of 11, age of 9, age of 10, and they would almost be raped, right, because they have no understanding of what is happening at that age. And there were girls who used to die in such an act, or other things used to happen, like the husband who was far older to the girl would die, so girl would be at the age of 15 would become widow, and according to Dharma Shastra remarriage was not allowed. तो पूरी जिंदगी उसको कैसे रहना है, तो वो शास्त्र के अनुसार रहना पड़ता था. बाल छोटे कर दो, सफेद साड़ी पहन के पूरी जिंदगी रहो, अच्छी चीजें खानी नहीं चाहिए. All those laws came into force, which were Dharma Shastra laws, right? And so Indian reformers wanted to change, raise the age of marriage from 10 to 12 उस टाइम पे. आज 18 से 21 हुआ है, अगर आपने न्यूज पढ़ी है तो, राइट. आज ऐसा कानून बना है कि 18 से लड़की की शादी की उम्र 21 करनी चाहिए. ऐसा आज कानून बनाया है इंडियन गवर्नमेंट. उस टाइम पे 8-9 साल से बढ़ाकर 12 करना चाहिए, ऐसा एक आंदोलन हुआ, राइट. व्हाट डू यू हैव टू से अबाउट दैट? आपको ये पता था जो मैं कह रहा हूं वो?
Yes,
हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू न्यू ऑफ दिस? पता है आपको? कितने लोगों ने ये सुना था? ओके, पृथ्वी डिडंट. Anyone else who was aware of what I'm saying just now? Yes, no? Deepika, Disha, Udit, did you know this, what I'm saying about the age of consent?
yes,
Okay.
sir.
Acha, where did you study it? In your history book, Udit?
No, sir. Most probably, right now, many articles are there from time to time that from 18 to 21 it's going to happen. So I was just reading about it. At that time, I knew about it.
Okay, but I am not talking of what is happening now. I'm talking of raising the age from 8-9 से लेकर 12 करने के लिए उन्होंने बहुत मेहनत की थी, बहुत झगड़े हुए थे उस टाइम पे. 19वीं सदी की बात कर रहे हैं हम.
No, sir, I don't know about that.
Okay. So, while looking at modern Indian literature, we have to understand all these processes of modernization and the conflict, right? The colonial history and the conflicts and modernization process. And that connects us to what we consider as commonsensical today, right? It is commonsensical today not to marry your daughter at the age of 9, right? You would get her married at 15, 16, 17, 18, right? It is illegal to marry a girl before the age of 18. ये बात अलग है कि लोग ये कानून तोड़ते हैं, पर फिर भी कानून तो यही कहता है कि 18 साल तक आप अपनी बेटी की शादी नहीं कर सकते, राइट? तो ये मॉडर्न नोशन है. So you can see how modernity and tradition exist in legal and political domain, in the religious domain as well, right? So what is law? The official age of marriage is 18 years for daughter, for a girl. But even then, people break law and follow tradition, right? So it's a legal problem. So you can see how these issues are related to modernity. We are looking at modernity in great amount of detail, right? How does this connect to literature? It connects to literature because literature of modern India after colonial period reflects all these themes. All these social cultural problems find their expression in literature. The question of widow, question of sati, question of age of consent of marriage, the question of social reforms, the question of nationalism, question of national pride, question of anti-colonial spirit. All these questions that we have discussed are found in 19th and early 20th century Indian literature, right? And that's why you cannot study modern Indian literature without looking at this history. And that is the reason why we have brought this up, right? Does that clarify why we are discussing all this? Because literature cannot be understood outside this context, right?
Yes, sir,
And among the earliest writers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy also very famously wrote a letter. उसने तो सती प्रथा बंद करने के लिए लेटर लिखा ही था, उसने एक और लेटर लिखा था जो हमारे लिए बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है अंग्रेजों को. वो ये लिखते हैं कि आप एजुकेशन सिस्टम बनाओगे तो उसमें हमें संस्कृत, पर्शियन ऐसी भाषाएं मत पढ़ाओ, हमें हमारा धर्म शास्त्र मत पढ़ाओ, हमें वेस्टर्न साइंसेस पढ़ाओ और हमें अंग्रेजी भाषा पढ़ाओ, राइट? दैट इज व्हाट राजा राम मोहन रॉय हैज रिटन, दैट हमें हमारा समाज अगर प्रगति करना चाहता है, एंड द आइडिया ऑफ प्रोग्रेस एंड डेवलपमेंट that somebody was talking about in the last class, right, has something to do with English, right from the time of Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who died in 1840 or so. I don't remember the exact date, right? आज से 100 साल पहले गुजर गए थे, पर उन्होंने ये कहा कि अंग्रेजी दो हमको. He told the British government that please teach us English, right? And that gave rise to a controversy. और controversy ये थी that some British people of East India Company said that we should teach Sanskrit and Persian languages to Indians because these are the classical languages of India. We should teach these languages to Indians, right? And these scholars were called Orientalists. तो ओरिएंटलिस्ट कौन थे? वो ब्रिटिश लोग थे जो चाहते थे कि भारतीय लोगों को संस्कृत में एजुकेशन देना चाहिए और पर्शियन में एजुकेशन देना चाहिए। दूसरा ग्रुप ये था जो कहता था कि नहीं, एजुकेशन अंग्रेजी में होना चाहिए, राइट। So what happens that East India Company decided that we will spend 1 lakh rupees, right? That was in 1835. 1835 साल में 1 लाख रुपये उन्होंने बजट निकाला एजुकेशन का, ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी का। उस टाइम के 1 लाख रुपये आज कितने होंगे? कितने होंगे पता है किसी को? किसी को पता है उस टाइम के 1 लाख रुपये आज कितने होंगे? दिशा, दीपिका, नो आइडिया, इवन आई हैव नो आइडिया, राइट? बट द पॉइंट इज इट्स अ ह्यूज अमाउंट ऑफ मनी at that time, right? And Thomas Macaulay, who was one of the important officers for education, said, right, he decided that the education given in East India Company will be in English, right? He made English compulsory in education system in 1835, right? And what did he say? That why are we doing this? Because he says we want to create a class of people who are Indians in their blood and color, and whose brains or whose mind is Western, right? हमें एक ऐसा वर्ग निर्माण करना है जो जिसका खून, जिसका शरीर, जिसकी चमड़ी इंडियन हो मगर उनका दिमाग वेस्टर्न हो। ऐसे लोग हमें क्रिएट करने हैं, ऐसा वर्ग, ऐसा क्लास हमें बनाना है, राइट? क्यों? क्योंकि ये क्लास विल बी अ काइंड ऑफ गो बिटवीन द रूलर्स एंड द रूल्ड। इंडिया को चलाने के लिए ये क्लास की बहुत जरूरत है, राइट? And so for the administrative and political convenience, education was implemented in India, not out of charity, right? उन्होंने चैरिटी में नहीं दिया हमको एजुकेशन, उनकी मजबूरी थी, उनको जरूरत थी ऐसे लोगों की जिनका दिमाग अंग्रेज का हो और शरीर उनका भारतीय हो, right? And that is how English studies got consolidated in India. Coming back to today's time, do you think Macaulay has succeeded? ऐसे लोग उसने पैदा किए हैं जिनका दिमाग अंग्रेज हो और शरीर उनका भारतीय हो? Do you think so? Deepika, Prithvi, Udit, do you think Macaulay has succeeded? Yes, and you can see that is the reason why all of us will send our children to English medium school, right? Because English promises progress in the material domain. Education for intellectual and material progress, right? Education for social mobility, right, is possible through English. You can get better jobs. तो उस टाइम में कौन सा बेटर जॉब था? ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी का। और आज अगर आप अंग्रेजी में पढ़ते हो तो आज के ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी में आपको अच्छी नौकरी मिलेगी। आज की ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी कौन सी है? आज है ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी?
है सर, बहुत सारी है,
बहुत सारी है, right? The corporates, right? So today's education is driven by corporate requirements rather than intellectual and cultural development. Is not the primary aim of education. It is to fulfill corporate needs. Corporates want this race of people who are Indians in blood and color, but their thinking is Western. ऐसे लोगों की जरूरत आज भी है कॉर्पोरेट्स को, इसलिए पर्सनालिटी डेवलपमेंट के क्लासेस चलते हैं, है ना. So you can see how colonialism, British colonialism, has a deep impact on our life today, right? Our values today, our thinking today, right? When I mean values, it means that we will send our children to English medium schools, right? Even if we claim to be nationalist, हम कितने भी राष्ट्रभक्त हो, हमारे बच्चे तो इंग्लिश मीडियम स्कूल में ही जाएंगे. वहीं पे अंग्रेजों की जीत है. क्या कहना है आपको? हमारी आधुनिकता पे, हमारी मूल्यों पे कॉलोनियल हिस्ट्री का बहुत गहरा प्रभाव है आज तक. इसलिए ये हिस्ट्री हमको समझनी बहुत जरूरी है, राइट? और ये हिस्ट्री अगर आप ना समझो तो आधुनिक भारतीय साहित्य भी नहीं समझ में आता, क्योंकि साहित्य ये इन मूल्यों में से ही आता है, इन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स में से ही आता है, इस सोच में से ही आता है, इन आइडियोलॉजीज से भी आता है, जो हमने अभी डिस्कस किया, राइट? So we have to understand literary text of modern Indian literature in this context, where colonialism has played a prominent role in affecting our lives today, right? And a discipline which studies the impact of colonialism on our society, right, is called post-colonial studies. Have you heard of this term before? So post-colonial society studies the impact of colonialism on colonized societies like India. It's a discipline, it's an interdisciplinary branch of studies which studies culture, society, literature, politics from the perspective of colonialism, where colonialism is seen as one of the important drivers of Indian modernity, right? Any questions about this? What is post-colonial studies? Post का मतलब colonialism के बाद क्या हुआ, right? It is like post graduate, यानी graduation के बाद क्या हुआ इस देश में या इस समाज में. ये पढ़ने के लिए आप जो रिसर्च करते हैं उसे पोस्ट कॉलोनियल स्टडीज कहते हैं. क्लियर?
Yes, sir.
Right. So modern Indian literature has to be understood in the context of modernity and question of tradition. And we saw that tradition टूट नहीं जाती, उसे रीइंटरप्रेट किया जाता है, रिकास्ट किया जाता है. अब फिर से समझते हो, उसका पुनर्अर्थघटन होता है. You are reinterpreting something in the light of modernity. So processes of modernization are happening in the domain of technology, right? But also in the domain of thinking and ideology. Processes of modernization are also happening in the domain of religion. They are also happening in the domain of politics, right? They are also happening in the domain of literature. It's also happening in the domain of art and culture. And that is the reason why we are looking at it in great detail, right? In the domain of fashion, for example, fashion is also caught up in the processes of modernization, right? Fashion is something that gets modernized very quickly and it goes away and a new trend comes up, right? And then older trends come back, right? So our clothes, our food habits, our religion, our thoughts, our values, are all historical, and that's why related to modernization. Right? And this is the context in which we are looking at modern Indian literature. So let us start in the given time that we have. We'll look at one poet who is one of the earliest modern poets, right? And probably one of the greatest poets in India. So I will open that and share that screen with you. Okay, let me share the screen. Okay, can you see the screen? Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Right? Asadullah Khan Mirza Ghalib. Have you heard of this person's name before? सुना है नाम पहले?
I think once
Okay, where?
in a YouTube video.
Okay, so Asadullah Khan Ghalib, Mirza Ghalib was one of the greatest Indian poets, right? In the line of, say, for example, Kabir or Premchand or Tagore and Manto. You can keep Ghalib as one of the important names. And this is the life. He was born in 1797. And when he was born, East India Company had almost conquered the entire country, right? It is in 1765 that Battle of Buxar happened. And 1757, 1757 में, the great Battle of Plassey happened, Palashi ka Yudh, where Sirajuddaulah and Mir Jafar, right, changed sides, and British conquered the richest portion in India. That was the Bengal province, and they made huge amount of money. और इतने पैसे मिले कि उन्होंने अपनी सेना भी बहुत बढ़ा ली, और उन्होंने बाद में 1818 में उन्होंने मराठा को हरा दिया, right? And they became kind of virtually the rulers of the entire Indian subcontinent in 1818. 1818, 100 साल 200 साल पहले आज से, right? So ये सब हो रहा था तब गालिब पैदा हुए, right? 1797, and his family came from family of Turks who came from Central Asia in 18th century when Shah Alam II was on the throne. And Shah Alam was a very weak ruler, right? Shah Alam II. Ghalib was born in Agra and came to Delhi as a young man and spent a joyous childhood flying kites and playing chess. In 1827, he went to Calcutta. Then in 1829, he returned to Delhi and he lived there for almost his full life. He used to live in a very indulgent way. He was extremely fond of drinking, gambling, and all that, which led to his arrest in 1847. उसे जेल में भेजा गया जुआ खेलने के चार्जेस पर. And that led him to Mughal court. But when he came to Mughal court, I think it was Bahadur Shah Zafar. And then what happened was that in front of his eyes, British destroyed the 1857 uprising. तो उसने अपने आंखों के सामने 1857 का नजारा देखा, right? 1857 का. And there are two biographies that his contemporary wrote. One is by Hali called Yadgar-e-Ghalib, 1897, and Mirza Moz Hayat-e-Ghalib, 1899, written long time after his death in 1869. His Diwan is collection of poems, right, was published in 1841, and he was a bilingual poet. He wrote in Urdu and Farsi, Persian, right? To write in Urdu was something which was fairly new for the time, because Urdu was the vernacular language, लोगों की भाषा थी, while Persian was the classical language, right, which was the language of the elites of the time. And there was already a tradition of Urdu poetry started by Amir Khusro that we have seen, right? Last time we discussed Amir Khusro. We also saw the genre of ghazal, and we discussed some of the motifs in ghazal, and the motifs in ghazal were Ashik, Mashuk, Rakib, that is the lover's rival, Saki, and the Sheikh. And Mehfil, that's the place where poets used to gather and recite their ghazals, was an important place, right? And the court was the place. And Bahadur Shah Zafar himself was a renowned poet. Okay. His Farsi collection, Persian collection, was published as Mekhana-e-Arzu in 1845. His Persian diary called Dastambu is a 1858 में जो आया फारसी में, is an account of the Sipai mutiny and its impact on Delhi, right? And in the year before his death, he wrote this book called Kulliyat-e-Nathr-e-Farsi-e-Ghalib, a collection of his Persian writings, letters, prefaces, commentaries, etc., etc. His fame as a prose writer rests on his letters published in 2 volumes, Ud-e-Hindi and Ud-e-Maula. If you remember, in our previous class, we discussed the question of Hindi. And I told you that what is called Hindi is one of the branches of Hindustani. The language is called Hindustani. So its Arabic, Persian orientation is called Urdu, and Sanskritic orientation is called Hindi. तो एक भाषा के 2 स्वरूप है हिंदुस्तानी. That's why if you've seen older films, जो बहुत पुरानी फिल्में होंगी 1980s की वगैरह, तो उसके टाइटल इंग्लिश में आते हैं, हिंदी में आते हैं और उर्दू में भी आते हैं. I don't know if you have noted that. How many of you noted that if you watch older films? I don't know how many of you watch old films of the 80s and 70s.
Yes, sir, I've seen it sometimes.
So you see that Urdu script is also used, right, to write the names?
Yes, sir.
Right, that is because Urdu and Hindi are considered same language called Hindustani. So what we call Hindi films is not really Hindi. It is Hindustani film. और आज तो पंजाबी ज्यादा लगता है हिंदी फिल्म, right? It's not really Hindi, it's more like Punjabi, Haryanvi kind of thing that you hear even in the Hindi, so-called Hindi film songs. Okay, so let's look at this Urdu ghazal, and I want somebody to read this for me. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
So, and we discussed the structure of ghazal last time when we were discussing Amir Khusro, right? So the first opening share, couplet को शेर कहते हैं, is called matla, and then this is the rhyme and refrain. So rhyme is called, what is it called? क्या कहा rhyme को? काफिया कहते हैं, the rhymes, and whatever follows that is called radif, right, refrain, and it ends, the last share ends with the name, the poetic pseudonym of the poet called Takhallus. That is the pseudonym of the poet. Okay, so who will read this? Who will volunteer?
Sir, may I?
Yeah, you can try.
Sir, can you please just zoom it a bit because
और
yes sir.
करो zoom.
नहीं नहीं सर बहुत हो गया. हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले. बहुत निकले मेरे अरमान लेकिन फिर भी कम निकले. डरे क्यों मेरा कातिल, क्या रहेगा उसकी गर्दन पर. वो खू जो सर आई कैन नॉट रीड दैट.
हाँ, खू जो चश्मे तर से.
खू जो चश्मे तर से उम्र भर यूं. सर इट्स टू मच zoomed आउट. आई कैन नॉट. उम्र भर क्यों दम बदम निकले. निकला खुल्द से आदम का सुनता आए थे लेकिन बहुत बेआबरू होकर तेरे कूचे से हम निकले. भारत भरम भरम खुले जाए जालिम तेरे कमात की. सर आई कैन नॉट रीड हिंदी दैट वेल.
कामत की. नो, डजंट मैटर. कामत की दराजी का.
कामत की दराजी का. अगर
ये हिंदी नहीं है, ये हिंदुस्तानी है, उर्दू
यस
है.
सर इट्स टू मच कॉम्प्लिकेटेड वर्ड्स फॉर मी.
तो उसका मीनिंग भी मैंने नीचे दिया है, देख लेना. कोई बात, कंटिन्यू.
अगर इस तुराए पुर पैचोखम का पैचोखम निकले. मगर लिखवाए कोई उसको खत तो हमसे लिखवाए हुए सुबह और घर के कान पर रखकर कलम निकले. हुई इस दौर में मंसूब मुझसे बड़ा आसामी.
शामी. हाँ.
फिर आया वो जमाना जो जहां मैं जमे जम निकले. हुई जिनसे तवक्को खस्तगी की दाद पाने की. वो हमसे भी ज्यादा खस्ते तग सितम निकले. मोहब्बत से नहीं है फर्क जिनका.
मोहब्बत में नहीं है
फर्क जिनका और मरने का.
जीने का
और मरने का. उसी को देखकर जीते हैं जिस
काफिर.
going and coming.
फ्लैशिंग. या हाँ. जिस काफिर पे दम निकले.
खुदा के वास्ते पर्दा न खाबे का उठा जालिम. कहीं ऐसा ना हो या ये भी वही काफिर सनम निकले. कहाँ मैखाने का दरवाजा गालिब और कहाँ वईस. पर इतना जानते हैं कल वो जाता था कि हम निकले.
Okay. Another important thing about a ghazal is that हर शेर में पहले से लेकर लास्ट में there is no clear continuity of theme and motive, right? As if these couplets are independent of each other almost, right? Not always, but very often. So if you go back to the first शेर or the first couplet, तो इट सेज हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले. बहुत निकले मेरे अरमान लेकिन फिर भी कम निकले. सो व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय दैट? ऑल वर्ड्स आर इजी टू अंडरस्टैंड, राइट? हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले. And I think a film is made, I think, using this title, right? हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी. किसने देखी है फिल्म वो?
No, sir.
तो देख लेना नेटफ्लिक्स या प्राइम या किसी पे. So Netflix. Yeah. So हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले, बहुत निकले मेरे अरमान लेके फिर भी कम निकले. What does this mean?
Sir, I guess it means that he had too many dreams, and every dream was worth his life for. Means he can bet his life for that every single
Right.
dream. But even if he completed many dreams, there were still so many left. Is what I think it means.
Hmm. Hmm. Anyone else wants to try? Khwahish is desire, right? Arman is wish. So there is a difference between desire and wish, right? Hazaro khwahishe aisi. There are thousands of desires. That on each and every desire, you can die. You can die for each and every desire.
Sir,
But
I guess wishes originated from the desire.
तो
If you
बहुत
desire
निकले मेरे
something,
अरमान. हाँ.
then you
लेकिन
wish
फिर
for
भी
it.
कम निकले. So all his desires are like each desire will take his life, right? That is the nature of each desire, and there are thousands of desires that a human being has. Okay. डर क्यों मेरे कातिल, डरे क्यों मेरा कातिल, डरे क्यों मेरा कातिल, क्या रहेगा उसकी गर्दन पर, वो खूं जो चश्मे तर से उम्र भर यूं दम बेदम निकले. सो व्हाट इज चश्मे तर से? इज भीगी आंखों से. चश्मे यानी आंख, तर यानी पानी से भरना. उम्र भर यूं दम बेदम निकले, राइट? एवरी मोमेंट. सो व्हाई शुड माय किलर, कातिल यानी पर्सन हु मर्डर्स, राइट? डरे क्यों मेरा कातिल, क्या रहेगा उसकी गर्दन पर, वो खूं जो चश्मे तर से उम्र भर यूं दम बेदम निकले. एनी आइडिया ये कातिल कौन है?
Desire, I guess.
ओके. व्हाट एल्स? Who will you call a murderer? And that is again a motive. And last time we were looking at motives in poetry, right? Motif is an image or a symbol or a cluster of image and symbol that keeps on recurring throughout literature. So here, Katil is murderer, literal meaning is murderer. And that is where we discuss distinction between literal meaning and figurative meaning. So metaphorically, Katil means what? Is he talking of real murderer or a metaphorical murderer?
Sir, I think a metaphorical murderer. It
Exactly.
could be a friend. It could be, someone he likes, or I mean,
Right. It can be his beloved, right? It can be his
yes.
object of desire. Right. So डरे क्यों मेरा कातिल, क्या रहेगा उसकी गर्दन पर, वो खूं जो चश्मे तर से निकले. यानी पानी भरी आंखों से खून निकलता है ना, निकलता है या नहीं निकलता?
I think he is trying to say that वो इच्छा पूरी करने से क्या मतलब, जिससे हमें बाद में हमें उससे पछताना पड़े, is I guess.
Not like that. It's more like he, see, first couplet और second couplet में ऐसे कोई relation नहीं है except for the meter and rhyme, right? रदीफ काफिया है जो मतले से जुड़ा है. मतला is the first शेर, right? डरे क्यों मेरा कातिल, क्यों रहेगा, क्या रहेगा उसकी गर्दन पर, वो खूं जो जश्मे तर से उम्र भर यूं दम बेदम निकले, right? So the blood that is coming out of his eyes filled with water because he is weeping. So he is weeping, but his wet eyes what is coming out of that? Blood. And that blood will be on the hands of his murderer. Okay, let's look at the English translation of this, so that may explain it easier. Okay, so who will read this English translation? This is desires come by in the thousands, and Prithvi, can you read this out?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Each desire eats up a whole life. Desires come by the thousands. I've received what I wanted many times, but still it was not enough. The one who killed me should not accept blame for my death. My life has been pouring out through my eyes for years. In paradise, as we know, God showed Adam the door. When I have been shown your door, I feel a shame deeper than his. The tallness we all see in you is an illusion. If someone took the tangles from your hair, we could all see that. Hire me if you are commissioning a letter to her. Every morning I come out of my house with the pen behind my ear. These days, people point at me and say, "This is true wine drinking." It must be time once more for Jamshed's great cup. I am always asking others to sympathize with my pain. So, could you scroll it a bit? Okay, but
Page changes. Yeah.
but it turns out they are worse off than I am. For devoted lovers, living and dying are about the same. My my life is sustained by looking at her, but it also takes my life away. For the love of God, please don't lift the curtain over the Kaaba. Kaaba. Perhaps in that spot we may find an ordinary stone. The mullah and the tavern don't seem to be two separate things, Ghalib, but I did notice that he was entering yesterday as I was leaving.
Right. So, what do you make of this poem?
Uh, okay, I need to analyze it for a while because this is a bit tough for me.
Not just you. This is for everyone. What do you make of it, Deepika, Udit? Right. So, look at the first two lines. हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले, बहुत निकले मेरे अरमान लेकिन फिर भी कम निकले. Each desire eats up a whole life. Desires come by the thousands. I have received what I wanted many times, but still it was not enough. So that's the idea in the first two lines, right? डरे क्यों मेरा कातिल, क्या रहेगा उसकी गर्दन पर, वो खून जो चश्मे तर से उम्र भर यूं दम बेदम निकले. The one who killed me should not accept the blame for my death. My life has been pouring out of my eyes for years. निकलना खुल्द से आदम का सुनते आए थे, लेकिन बहुत बेआबरू होके कूचे से हम निकले. In paradise, we all know God showed Adam the door. When I have been shown your door, I feel a shame deeper than his. What do you mean by that? Each two line has to be interpreted separately, right? And still tangentially they are connected to the first two lines, the matla. And that is the structure of this genre itself. called ghazal, right? The lines have independent meaning, two lines, but they are tangentially connected to the first two lines. So in paradise, as we know, God showed Adam the door. Have you heard the story of Adam and Eve
Yes,
in
sir.
Yes,
paradise?
sir.
Right? Adam was thrown out of the paradise. That's the original sin because he disobeyed God. Right? So he was shown the door. And here the speaker in the poem says, when I was shown your door, I feel a shame deeper than his. So I am ashamed more than Adam when I am rejected, when I am rejected in love. Right? So he's comparing his shame with that of Adam being uh, thrown out of paradise. So paradise becomes a metaphor for when he was with his beloved, right? The speaker. Okay. भरम खुल जाए जालिम तेरे कामत की दराजी का, अगर उस तुराए पुर पचो कम का पेचो कम निकले. So what does that mean? It means that the tallness we all see in you is an illusion. If someone took the tangles from your hair, we could all see that. Tallness of his beloved or his person. And you can see that in a ghazal, the addressee जिससे आप बात कर रहे हैं वो change भी हो सकता है. Right? So that is ambiguous very often. That is not clear. And then he says, मगर लिखवाए कोई उसको खत तो हमसे लिखवाए. Right? Hire me if you are commissioning a letter to her. हुई सुबह और घर से कान पर रखकर कलम निकले. Every morning I come out of my house with pen behind my ear. So every day he is waiting for somebody to tell him and write letter to the beloved. So if somebody is planning to send a letter to her, I am always waiting, right? I am moving around with the pen behind my ear. हुई इस दौर से मंसूब मुझे बादा आशामी, फिर आया वो जमाना जो कहे मैं जामे जम निकले. These days people point at me and say this is true wine drinking, right? People are pointing out that he is a great wine drinker. It must be time once more for Jamshid's great cup. And there is this story of Jamshid's Jame Jamshid. Jamshid was the ruler of Persia. And it was believed that in his cup he could see the problems and what is going to happen in the world. It was like his cell phone then. Right? So that in that cup he could see his kingdom and his world. So these days people point at me and say that this is true wine drinking. But it's time once more for Jamshid's great cup. हुई जिनसे तवक्को खस्तगी की दाद पाने की, वो हमसे भी ज्यादा खस्ते तंग सितम निकले. I'm always asking others to sympathize with my pain, but it turns out that they are worse off than I am. Right? He's going around expecting others to be sympathetic with him, but it seems that they are worse off than I am. खस्ताए तंग सितम निकले. उन्होंने ज्यादा खस्ता खाए. Right? They have met with more problems in their life. So he is going around expecting others to sympathize with his suffering, but the others are having worse time than him. So मोहब्बत में नहीं फर्क जीने और मरने का, उसी को देखकर जीते जिस काफिर पे दम निकले. For devoted lovers, living and dying are about the same. My life is sustained by looking at her, but it also takes my life away. Right? And again, as I'm saying, kafir is a metaphor. Kafir is a non-believer, right? But according to the Persian Arabic poetics, it's a metaphor for the beloved as well. something that we discussed last time in Amir Khusro. ओके, खुदा के वास्ते पर्दा न काबे से उठा जालिम, कहीं ऐसा ना हो कि वहीं वहीं काफिर सनम निकले. For the love of God, please don't leave the curtain over Kaaba. Kaaba is the religious place in Makkah, right? And it's a stone that is considered sacred by the Muslims. It's covered with curtain. So he says, please don't lift that curtain, because if you lift that curtain, you may find an ordinary stone. Right? So it's a metaphor again for his lover, right? So his lover is covered in veil, burqa. So if you lift that veil, you may find an ordinary stone instead of the sacred stone. So he's afraid to lift that curtain. So again, this couplet is independent of other couplets. That's what I am trying to point out here. The meaning of these two lines is different from the earlier and the next lines. And the last two lines, कहाँ मैखाने का दरवाजा गालिब और कहाँ वाइज, पर इतना जानते हैं कल वो जाता था कि हम निकले. The mullah and the tavern door seem to be two separate things, गालिब. कि जो religious leaders हैं, धर्म के ठेकेदार है, वो एक जगह पे दिखते हैं, और शराब खाना, which is again a metaphor, right? We discussed last time. The tavern is also, mekhana is a metaphor. So they seem to be two different things. But yesterday I saw him enter as I was leaving. मैं शराब पी के बाहर निकल रहा था, तब मैंने उसे देख लिया, तो वो अंदर जाता था कि हम निकले. Right? This is translated from the Urdu by Robert Bly and Sunil Datta. So this is the poem. So what comes to your mind? What do you think?
Sir, I interpreted it in my own way. What I think is, it says, no matter what you do in life, you don't always get what you want. Basically, because you never stop wanting.
Yes, your desires are infinite, right?
Yeah.
And each desire can kill you,
Mm.
right? But it's never still enough. You're not going to stop desiring just because your desires are going to kill you. That's the first couplet, right? So that is a kind of broad main theme, but others are only loosely connected to the main theme of the poem. That is the speciality of ghazal genre. Okay, and you can see these paradoxes over here, right? For the love of God, please don't lift the curtain over Kaaba. Perhaps in the spot we may find an ordinary stone. The mullah and tavern seem to be two separate things, Ghalib. I did notice that he was entering yesterday as I was leaving. So this is sarcasm, paradox, and irony. And we found that even in Amir Khusro's ghazal, right? Last time. Okay, so this brings us to the end of our class for today. Any question that you have to ask?
Sir, I have that one question, that tangles in your hair, one line I didn't understand that.
Okay, so it addresses, it says, यहाँ पे है वो, भरम खुल जाए जालिम तेरे कामत की दराजी का, right? The tallness we see you in you is an illusion. आप लंबे दिख रहे हो, ऊंचे दिख रहे हो, पर वो भ्रम है. भरम खुल जाए जालिम तेरे कामत की दराजी का. If someone took the tangle from your hair, we could all see that. That means it's deceptive, right? It seems as if you are very tall or great, but if you look at the tangles, then we can see from your tangle that you can easily touch the tangles of the hair. That means you can easily reach the hair. So it appears that he is either beloved or he is someone else that he is addressing. He is very tall. That means great. But in reality, it's not so great. That's the irony of it. अगर इस तुर्रा ए पुर पचोकम का पचोकम निकले, right? And you have to see that it's not entirely connected with all the ideas in. So all the couplets have almost independent ideas, as if these couplets are different poems. दो लाइन की कविता है जो एक गजल के अंदर फिट गई, ऐसा भी लगता है. You can read that in that way, right? ये पहला जो शेर है उसका ऐसे दूसरे से ज्यादा लेना देना है नहीं, और दूसरे का तीसरे से भी ज्यादा लेना देना है नहीं. The only thing that connects is the idea of love, right? And separation and desire and intoxication, and finally the sarcastic couplet about the gatekeepers of religion, right? The mullahs. So each sher is almost a different poem in itself. So ghazal is a one poem that is made up of many poems, where each sher you can understand almost independently. At the same time, there is some connection to the matla, pehla sher.
And sir, the last line he told that when he went out, someone came in. He saw someone coming. Who was the person he saw coming in?
देख लो ना, कहाँ मैखाने का दरवाजा गालिब और कहाँ वाइज. वाइज यानी मुल्ला. मैखाने का दरवाजा यानी शराब खाने का दरवाजा. एक तरफ शराब का दरवाजा है और दूसरी तरफ धर्मगुरु है. अब ये दो साथ में तो नहीं हो सकते, पर उसने क्या देखा, जब मैं कल निकलता था शराब खाने से, तब वो आ रहा था अंदर.
ओके सर, आई गेट इट नाउ.
यानी मैं दारू पी के बाहर निकल रहा था, वो दारू पीने जा रहा था. So it's a sarcastic comment about the religious leader. So there is a sarcasm that you need to get. यानी जो नैतिकता के पाठ देते हैं लोगों को, धार्मिकता के, उनकी खुद की नैतिकता कैसी है, उनकी खुद की धार्मिकता कैसी है, उसके पर मजाक कर रहा है. Right?
Yes, sir.
Good. Any other question? Okay. So we'll stop for today. I think tomorrow is Christmas, right? So it's going to be a holiday tomorrow.
So it's already Saturday, so
yeah. So we'll meet next week then.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is